A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-Cole credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Sam, you keep switching the screens around on me. God.
I like to keep it interesting.
Don't you know my heart is bad enough? We are powered by the BBM network. And today's show is just so exciting because we have two great guests from a great organization that really holds dear to my heart. Same with you, Sam. You know, being married and or in a relationship and suffering from post-traumatic stress could really take a toll on the healing processes throughout one's career or retirement or anything else. So today's show is really exciting for me.
Yeah, and you know, it's a combination of I think 4 decades. It's a crazy number that they have in law enforcement. They've both been through many critical incidences and bringing that home because they both served as law enforcement officers to each other. It created a very interesting dynamic, as you can imagine. And, you know, from what we do at A Badge of Honor, we've heard it's hard enough when you have one spouse that's a first responder and the other one is not. The whole dynamic changes when you've got two folks wearing badges, trying to communicate on any given day. It's been interesting. It's been humorous. They shared because our guests today are no stranger to podcasts. They're no stranger to video screens. They've been on with our friend Conrad. We were at PTSI 911. And it's the way that they tell their story. Oh, yeah, they've been a subject of a documentary. We can touch on that because it's all about healing. It's all about how we can learn to do things well because we suck at asking for help.
We do.
We do. It just like Jeff says in our workshops. And it takes being, I think, in a setting where maybe you're coming into something, you're like, oh God, I do not want to be here. You're voluntold, right? But when you are in a room with people who are sharing their hearts because they care about you and don't want you to fall into the same holes that they fell in, and that, hey, there's hope on the other side. There's healing on the other side. It is really dramatic. We know from our partner in A Badge of Honor, Jeff Freeman, who's like, I hope, Jeff, you're out there listening. Pop on if you want to. You got the link, but he's like, when are you going to have them on? You have to have them on. So let's just get right into it. Tonight on the podcast, we welcome that peer support couple, Javi and Cathy Bustos. Hey guys, welcome.
Hello. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. How are y'all doing?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks for inviting us. I mean, you gave us such a build up. Now we have to really come through.
I'm like, who are those
please, if anybody visits your website, it's how you guys present yourselves and reading how much experience you both bring to the table. I got that right. 4 decades, right?
Oh yeah, combined.
Yeah, Javier did 23 years and I did 25 years.
Right.
And Javi, you just retired this past August 2022. Yep, there you go. And Cathy, you retired before that, but you didn't stop, sister girl. You are on. You have been on fire. You have been on a mission since you retired, and you are now studying for your master's to further help the first responders out there that we really need it. Those numbers are not going down.
They're not.
You may, if you're checking out the statistics, you may look at 2019 versus now. Are the numbers down? The answer actually is maybe, because we know that departments just don't report.
Right.
So kudos to you both for staying active, for not retiring, because there's no such thing as retiring. You just moved to the next phase to really bless so many people. Just tell everybody watching and listening how you went from being law enforcement officers to becoming that peer support couple.
Okay.
We, I guess we have to start with our story. Initially, we were struggling in our marriage, and we were pretty much on the verge of a divorce. And we ended up at Post-Critical Incident Seminar in Huntsville through Bill Blackwood Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. And that 3-day program, as small as 3 days seems, saved our marriage, saved me personally and Javier personally. And through that process, and then going back as a peer, I met many phenomenal clinicians whose heart is at service for first responders. And I was always hearing them say, find a culturally competent first responder clinician, find somebody who knows how to work with cops. But then on the flip side of that, in my peer support work, I found that there were not enough first responder culturally competent clinicians out there. And when about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided that is what I wanted to do when I grew up. After 25 years in law enforcement, I decided that I wanted to become a clinician. With that, it would have taken, I'm advanced in age, obviously having a first career, but I just decided to retire. Javier was supportive of it, so I could start actually my bachelor's degree when I retired, and in May I will finish up my master's.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and we were both certified as peers through International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, and going through that post-critical incident seminar, as we call it for short, PCIS, it was life-changing, it was marriage-saving, and it was a way to pay it forward as peers. Because if you're going to be a peer to PCIS, most PCISs, you usually should go through it as a participant. And we did. And then we came back and started paying it forward. And we have developed a lot of great friendships with our fellow peers, their family, and the clinicians there. And as time went on, it was just funny. One day, somebody was looking for us during a PCIS, a fellow peer, and they were asking, "Where's Cathy and Javi? Has anybody seen Cathy and Javi?" We walked in the room at the same time, and they said, "Oh, there's that peer support couple." And there it was.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story. And I think that you hit on something that is very key, that I know we make the ask every time we're in front of an audience of first responders, that towards the end of your career, now is the time to really decide, do you want to become a mentor to the men and women that are coming up in ranks and really make a difference in their lives because you've been through some stuff? Or do you want to just, give the job the middle finger on the way out the door? Because we've got that spectrum. Right. We've got a lot of angry officers leaving the job, punching their ticket. John and I talk about this all the time. I mean, the amount at 2022 that will have their ticket punched the first quarter of 2023, their paperwork is in. They've just had enough, and some of them are not even waiting till retirement.
You're absolutely right. You're right. And I was going to say, we joke about they're throwing the middle finger as they're leaving because they're angry. But as Cathy will expand, anger is just the surface emotion. There is so much more trauma that they're experiencing. And if we don't get them before they retire, they're going to retire and they're going to stay angry. And that could develop into a lot of physical and mental trauma as they go on post first responder life. Right, Cathy?
Yeah. What you said is so true about people leaving law enforcement angry right now, because I mean, let's be honest, they have every right to be angry. However, the advice that I would give is leave in a good spot. If you are struggling and you're thinking about retiring and just, a lot of people say, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to fish, I'm going to hunt. And you can't do that full time.
Right.
Get the help that you need. Get your medical, your psychological, get all of that taken care of before retirement, instead of retiring angry and bitter and unhealthy. And that's what a lot of us do.
Right. And the thing about it is when you retire, you've earned that check of the month club paycheck, and what you want to do is you want to live so long, healthy, mentally and physically, that the entity, the city government, the county, the federal government, that years from now they're saying, we're still paying that person.
That's how you get back at them.
That's how you get back at them. You live a long, happy retirement life. Yeah. That's how you win.
Yeah, that you know what? That's a great way to look at it. I don't think we've heard that perspective before. We've got to take our first break. Hey guys, we have the amazing that's a peer support couple, Cathy and Javier Bustos, on the podcast with us tonight. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal, medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical Bill of Rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam with the peer support couple. We are powered by the BBM network, and we are glad to bring these two with us on the podcast because they are touching on such a great aspect of what every police officer and their family goes through. Before we took a break, we were talking about how cops feel when they retire. They kind of just throw the middle finger up and give the job a big FU. And the traumatic things that police officers go through throughout their career, the shootings, the stabbings, all the visuals that they see, you guys just hit on something. A lot of these officers join the force when they're young, when they're 21. They have a heart for service. They love the job. Most of them, and I got to tell you, I know a lot of guys are going to turn around and go, bullshit, I wouldn't do that. I would do the job for free. Most of them would because they love that job so much. They back to the community. When you take that aspect away from them, when the job gives you that big FU, that's hurtful. That hurts inside. That is soul crushing to a lot of our young officers who spent decades, doing something they loved. That right there could have a deadly effect on the mental health as well.
You're absolutely right. And, I've read it many times. I've heard it so many times that people say who, when they see that there's a mass amount of officers resigning and retiring from their departments, people say, oh, that's all the bad cops leaving. No, you're chasing away your good, loyal officers who wanted to have a life of serving others, be the public servant, not be a cop, be a public servant. And because of the rhetoric and because how they did the defunding and the bad narratives and even Hollywood getting involved, you couldn't watch a show about first responders without them demonizing the law enforcement characters. Well, all you're doing is you're pushing away all the good people, and people don't realize that. I personally know of really good people who have left this career field, left this calling because the way they were treated, it was blatant disrespect.
You know, especially the 10-year veterans, the ones that have a 10 and 15, one, they have the experience, but they came on the job when they were allowed to perform their duties, when they were allowed to be police officers. And
without that microscope.
Right. And they were allowed to be public servants, you know. Then they saw that change, and that became devastating to so many. And that's why, like, when we talk about the retirement in New York specifically, they're leaving in droves. You know, you can vest out on your pension at 15 years in New York, 20, you get your full pension. But guys are going, screw this. I'm out at 12. I don't even give a shit about my pension anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't want to deal with this stress anymore. I can't take it.
Yeah.
The job puts a lot more stress on you.
It's true. And, you know, and so now we have all these people leaving the job, and they're leaving in a traumatized state. And that's not healthy, right?
No, it's absolutely not healthy. And that's why, you know, I started this earlier by saying, if you're going to leave having utilized all the opportunities that you can to get the help, the psychological help if they have it, the peer support, the medical, utilize your medical insurance to get well. I had everything fixed before I left my career. I had everything that I had been putting off before, injuries that I just let go for long periods of time. So I left healthy and well, both physically and psychologically.
Right. And even I, in the months leading up to when I retired, I made an appointment with one of the psychologists that we had on staff at my department. And I went through more EMDR training. I was basically, anything that I had residual that may have bothered me more after I left, I cleaned my clock. And going through that EMDR again, when I retired on my last day, I drove out of the police department parking lot laughing because I was leaving it all behind me and I was looking forward.
Let me ask something. With that being said, with EMDR, right?
Right.
A lot of departments, and you're lucky, the department you're with, a lot of departments, insurance will not cover that. They will not even recognize it as a therapeutic measure for mental health, because they are so in the backwoods about just couch therapy. They do not explore these other venues that really make people, because everybody's different, that makes everybody mentally healthy. They just say, go on a couch, talk to a therapist. Six sessions, you'll be healed. 6 sessions, you'll be healed. And that's it. You brought up a great point with EMDR. A lot of departments will not have their insurance cover that. So that's all out of pocket.
Yeah, that's a sad fact. There are clinicians and doctors out there that will, you know, write their paperwork in such a way that it is part of the treatment modality for therapy. But there are clinicians and doctors at large agencies who do not believe in EMDR. It's the most research-based treatment modality for first responders, and it's an excellent therapy, and it's quick. It's not 6 to 12 sessions or 12 to 18. It can be done very efficiently and very effectively in 1 or 2 sessions.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing about it, we're talking about EMDR. We're talking about being on the couch, seeing a clinician. Well, I'm even talking about having strong peers and having strong peer support teams, because that's the job of your peers. Is we're triaging everybody out there. We're out there, boots on the ground, peer support, one-on-one, talking, letting people know the information that they need to know as peers. And then those that we contact that we know it's beyond our level of training of peers, those are the ones that we recommend they go see a clinician, because if all we did was send everybody to the clinicians would be overrun.
There would never be enough.
Peer support is so powerful that sometimes all it takes is that one-on-one conversation with somebody who does the job just like you, for you to be able to open up and talk. And we need more of that. We need more open conversations.
I'm biting my tongue, Sam. I'm biting my tongue.
Well, no,
Reason
I
being,
know there are more departments open, I think, to peer support, creating a peer support team. But there's also a fine line, because a lot of departments are like, oh, we'll create our team and then we peer support each other.
Mm-hmm.
That does not, I'll say from what we've seen, 90% of the time, that does not work. That is not the goal of creating a peer support team.
Right.
Yes, it's great to be able to give a voice to your frustration, your stress, your trauma, what's going on. Maybe that immediate need is like, okay, I just got to go talk to somebody, and you have somebody that is peer support trained in the department. But 9 times out of 10, we have heard of, it's like a high school drama where your stuff, and Jeff will attest to this, he goes and talks to somebody supposedly in confidence, and he walks out to his car in the parking lot, and it's like, well, how did you know I just said this,
Right.
And
yeah. That's bad.
Right.
That's bad. If a peer team violates confidentiality, they're no longer a peer team.
Yeah.
At all. And it's a failed mission. If you violate confidentiality as a peer, then you're done. Plain and simple.
And it destroys the whole team.
Yeah, for officers that are listening, for people that are interested in getting into peer support, explain like how the model is supposed to work. You go through training,
and that brings up an important topic is the training. A lot of people out there are just creating these peer support teams and saying they're peer support teams, but offering no training whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the nationwide and actually internationally wide as International Critical Incident Stress Management, we feel, it's our opinion, and I know that there's all sorts of peer trainings out there that are probably very good and effective, but that should be the baseline of any peer support team members training, is the basic or the individual crisis intervention and group crisis intervention training through International Critical Incident Stress Management Foundation. And any other training is just adding to your credentialing of being a good peer. And not only that, but also any mental health treatment, because if we think that we're hiring officers that don't have already mental health diagnoses, we're missing the boat.
Yeah.
Because
let me ask you a question, because were you guys both on a peer support team while you were on a job?
She started the peer support team in her department, and I was a volunteer for my department.
From what me and Sam have really heard from a lot of departments across the nation, and you tell me, I believe in peer support. I believe that officers need to talk to people, but here's where the smoke and mirror programs come into play. I come into work, I'm getting dressed at my locker, right? There's a peer support person next to me, looks at me and goes, trying to help, goes, hey, you don't look right. And I'm like, well, I'm battling, I'm having this, I'm having that. And he turns around and says, let's sit down and talk. So as we're sitting down and talk, the sergeant comes in and goes, hey, get out on patrol. You can't do this. Get out. And they push these guys out when they're just about to open up.
Mm-hmm.
Peer support teams are not given the leeway or the time needed to really sit down, either be a 15-minute conversation or a 2-hour conversation. The peer support teams within these departments have to be given the ample time to be able to hear someone's issues and not throw them out onto the street and say, discuss this later, because that could make the difference between life and death.
Right. And that's the importance of having trauma-informed leadership in your department. If your department from top to bottom has leadership where they understand the nature of trauma and crisis and the importance of peer support, then it's going to be a much better program.
Right. It has to come from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, and that's where we fail. The leaders are failing our officers and our teams and our peer support teams that are trying to do the right thing by their fellow brothers and sisters.
Well, I think the way that we have to look at it, rather than leaders failing, is that they are also wounded from multiple years of trauma, and they probably have not gotten the help that they needed within their careers. And so we're encouraged from chief on down to make sure that you're well psychologically, because as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we end up with a culture of first responders who are dying, by suicide, often more than line of duty death.
Exactly. If you have a boss who rose through the ranks, never got any kind of mental health help, any peer support clinicians, and they move up, they have a standard of how they do things. And sometimes it's basically, they do it because that's how it happened to them. And if they got through it, then anybody below them, they can get through it too, because I had to go through to it. And that's where it gets broken. You know, we have to have our leadership get the mental health help, because you know what? I'll respect the boss 1,000 times more if I know that boss has utilized peer support or they're going to see a clinician. It is not weakness at all when you're a boss to go get the help for yourself. In fact, I would respect the boss more that I would do that and admit that. And I always admit it to the officers that I supervised. I mean, I was a corporal, but there was officers that I did supervises, and I told them that I utilize peer support and I've talked to clinicians, and I have a diagnosis for post-traumatic stress disorder, because it doesn't put me in crutches. It shows my strength. I feel that if I can do it, so can you.
That's a great mindset to have and a great message to pass on. Guys, if you are just tuning in, we are talking to that peer support couple, Cathy and Javi Bustos. We got to take another quick break. We will be right back.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance you'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam, with our special guest with the peer support couple, Cathy and Javier. I'm so bad at that.
It's so bad.
Javier. It's my Italian New York stuff. I can't speak.
You know, you brought up right before we took a break, we were talking about the buy-in from our leadership of law enforcement. Because if they are coming through the ranks and they have gone through it, I got through it, you can get through it too. We know what that means. It means they just pushed it down. Right. They did what they needed to do to get through it. And most of the time it's not healthy. The statistics don't lie. And so how would you go about, explaining whether you have a chief or a lieutenant or a captain that comes to you to introduce the concept of peer support, or the best way for them as the leader to get buy-in from the department, because they never showed what they consider, a weakness, which we know it is not a weakness. It's just a dent.
Right. And especially if you come from a paramilitary organization like I did, in my career, I have said to people, because the stress that you go through in academy training and that high intensity stress, and then through the field training program, I know I went home in chest pains. I was so stressed out every day through my training program. And because of that, I said, when somebody would complain to me that my field training officer is being mean to me, I'm like, you know what? If you're not having chest pains at the end of the day, get out of my office. So those are the environments that the old timers were raised in, is that we've just been rinse, repeat over and over again. And I think, from the chief on down, or sheriffs, they have to be open. And there are now programs implemented for chiefs and for command staff to go get the help they need in a confidential environment. And they're with their like-minded peers of chiefs and executive staffing. In fact, they have it in New York at New York Law Enforcement Assistance Program. They have a command staff and executive program to go through PCIS just like us, only with their own people.
Right.
So they're rank to rank, basically.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I would also say is don't be a leader or a boss, a supervisor that you're just checking the box and saying, oh, we need peer support here. Check that box. Y'all go handle it. Don't let me know what's going on, because that's not the full investment. I would say And I understand out there, bosses, that y'all are busy and y'all got a lot of stuff. But if you could somehow fit some peer support training or go be peer support trained yourself and see how the program works, then you're going to know the value of peer support and mental health competent clinicians.
Yeah, they have to have buy-in. They have to care about it. It can't just be, oh, IACP or PERF or Fraternal Order of Police said we need peer support, so therefore go out there and, don't bother me with the details, just start a peer support team. And they have to be open to the process of getting help themselves and getting peer support themselves.
Well, let's go back. I want to go back to your individual stories because Javi, you were involved in an officer-involved shooting. That's actually the title of the documentary that was produced called Officer Involved. You guys can find that just by searching it. And Cathy, you had your own stuff. So separate departments. So this is for everybody tuning in. They did not work at the same department. Separate departments, really bad stuff in a very close period of time for both of you. How did you navigate these traumas with each other?
We didn't.
We didn't.
We didn't. And that was the mistake that we made as first responders. And that's the mistake that we made as spouses of first responders. We always have people that tell us, we wish we would have known you 12 years ago and you could have helped us. And we're like, no, you don't. We had a lot of trauma. We brought our past traumas into our relationship, from her being a cop for years, me being a veteran in the Air Force, Security Forces defender, and then becoming APD. I was in Somalia. We brought traumas into our relationship and we were like, it is what it is. It's a normal thing. Yeah. So we made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. I the way we describe it is that we were two cops living in a household who happened to be married versus a married couple who happened to be cops. So everything that we did as a couple, we did it as two cops, not as a married husband and wife. And we handled everything like that. You push it down, you get back to work, and
the next call,
the next call, the next crisis, the next trauma comes up. And so we were already in a heightened state of crisis. And then we had what we call the big three that happened to us. And those three things pretty much broke us, with the last being Javier's shooting.
Right. It was just basically, we didn't address it. You're brought up in the culture is that's what's going to happen to you, that you're going to be through a lot of bad situations, and you just stuff it and you move on. And we did that, and we never bothered to talk to each other as a husband and wife and check on each other. We just accepted the fact that you go on.
This is what we do as cops.
This is what we do. And then add in the other everyday stressors of being parents, of paying bills and whatnot. It all adds up.
A Marine son.
Yeah, our son was Marine Corps. Was deployed, and of course we're trying to provide the best family life for our daughter, who was in junior high and then high school. And in the meantime, we're presenting this really fake image of that. Oh, we were just great when we weren't, and fooling everybody.
I don't think we were fooling many people.
Well, yeah,
we like to think we were fooling people,
but I know we were fooling ourselves, and that's
we were fooling ourselves.
Fooling ourselves
because the kids are watching this dynamic as well.
Yeah, well, our son was already gone to the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And it was mainly our daughter that was raised in this kind of intense environment with us, and we passed our trauma on to her because she was asked to speak at my officer who died in the line of duty. She was asked to speak at his funeral, and she's not a public speaker. She's very sensitive, and she was really very stressed out about it. But we even, forced her to do it because as a police family, we sacrifice for our fallen, and we kind of forced that onto her. And of course, she's thankful now that she had that opportunity. But for a 17-year-old girl, in high school to speak at a police funeral is quite a daunting task. But so we kind of passed the trauma onto her as well. And then a month later, sent her off to college.
Right. Yeah. So we weren't even getting ourselves help, mental health help, And then our daughter goes through the loss of losing Officer Leonard Reed from Cedar Park Police Department, who she had a personal relationship. And then we were just like, okay, you did a great job speaking at his funeral.
Let's go to college.
Let's go to college. Not thinking that she wasn't given the opportunity to address the traumas, because that's not what we did.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you fix that? Because, now you've got a child who's, living vicariously through you, seeing this not really married couple type of communication. You guys talk on your website and in videos that you talked at each other as if you were, on working.
Right.
And that had to have a huge impact on your daughter. Did she come back and say, hey, I got to talk to you guys? Or did you guys have the aha moment after PCIS?
We had the aha moment. She's such a sweet and sensitive and caring child. She would have never said, quit being dumb, or,
Right.
she would have never come to us and said that, or you're making my life, miserable, or we went to PCIS. We had the aha moment. And in the process of us healing as a couple, we were able to then go back and talk to her and say, look, this is, you were raised in not a normal environment. And of course she knew that, being a police child. But fortunately, some of the things that we've learned are that we learned through the process. We've been able to pass on to our own children, and they're in their marriages, and they're both happily married. And we are thankful for that, because
Right.
it could have easily gone the other way.
And Cathy's right. We once we healed ourselves, and the process is, I had to heal myself. She had to heal herself before we could even address the issues in our marriage. So you got to take care of yourself first, take care of your marriage, and then address it with your children. And we even went back and talked to our kids after the fact, and let them talk to us about how they felt about things, and if anything that happened, what traumatized them from our careers. And it was a good conversation, because you never think that you're hurting your children.
And you never want to hurt your children.
You never want to.
But it's through your inaction of not taking care of yourself that you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting everybody else around you.
Yes,
Well, let me ask
because
you-
the communication or lack of communication or way of communication, they're always listening. It was when my husband and I, he's not law enforcement. I was, but I say he served because he kept me in one piece. So he's been around officers as a chiropractor, literally keeping me in one piece.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't
We
have
have
to
one of
tell
those as
you,
well.
Cathy, body armor, the 10-pound plus around your waist, it takes its toll. But, he's like, oh, Hayden's not listening. And he's at the top of the stairs. I'm like, he's listening. No matter what, he's listening. And, it hasn't been perfect, and we've had our ups and downs. We're still learning stuff. We're still consulting the professionals about how to best communicate. And when you have a spouse that is not a first responder, it doesn't mean that they don't have their stuff.
Right.
Too.
Right.
Okay, whether they had some sort of childhood trauma, or they had parents that fought all the time, or whatever it was, they should still be seen as equals in the way that we heal, right?
Yes.
So what would you suggest? I'm just throwing this out there, for the first responder to go to peer support, whatever it is, PCIS, or a peer support trained clinician, and their spouse, partner, person they're living with, go to a
Oh no.
first responder?
No.
It should be both, right?
It could be both, yeah. And post-critical incident seminar, no matter what state it's in, they encourage the family members to go.
Yes.
Not the children yet.
No, yeah.
I believe that's in the works, but right now it's just the first responder and their spouse or significant other. And that's encouraged, because it's not going to do the marriage or the family any good if only one of you is healed.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, our significant others and spouses, like you said, have their own trauma and their own issues with life. They're just compounded by being married to a first responder.
Right. And the simplest way to think about it is when a critical incident happens to the officer, it happens to the officer's family as well. They're going through it just as well. They may not have been on scene. They may not have seen the horrific things or pulled the trigger or what the case may be, but they're going through the critical incident and the trauma in their own way. And that's why it's important that they still see peer support. They still see the clinicians who are first responder, knowledgeable and competent, because you can't send them off on somebody who does not understand the world of first responders and the world of law enforcement. There's just no way that they could get the proper help. I think, John, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah. And on that, what you're just saying, and what Sam was talking about, when you have a spouse that is not educated within the first responder family or aspect of it, and when you talk about their own stuff. So here, a police officer comes home from a really shitty day on tour, on shift, right? But the spouse had to deal with the kids all day, had to deal with the school teachers. Hey, he's doing this, he's doing that, right? The first responder closes up because he doesn't understand what the spouse is going through, and vice versa. They don't understand what you went through on the job. It's the communication where it breaks down there because neither one of them are educated in what you do all day, right? So small little trigger words like, why is the laundry not done, could trigger one spouse. And what, your day was so hard driving around in a patrol car? Would you just give tickets all day? And that's where the education for family is so important when we discuss post-traumatic stress and relationships.
Absolutely. And we're getting a lot better because I think in a lot of the training across the country, they're including the spouses and significant others. The Warriors Rest Foundation we're beginning to start implementing a program for children because we're raising children who are unhealthy in our profession because the parents are unhealthy. But the education, and we talk a lot about this in our public speaking about the decompression time when a first responder comes home, just allowing that. And a doctor that works with PCIS, Dr. Harris, talks about doing meditation in the driveway before you walk in the door. And I know for the old timers, they're laughing, cops don't do meditation, but we absolutely should.
Yeah. Whenever you hear the word meditation, you think you can be sitting cross-legged with some incense going on, listening to some chanting music. And that's not it. I mean, that's not always, it is meditation, but it doesn't always have to be that way. You can sit in your vehicle, close your eyes and just deep breathe. Wash the day away. Because, our son-in-law, he's a deputy. He works corrections. Our son, he's a Marine, of course, but now as far as his full duty job is he's a state trooper here back in Texas. We're always talking to them about, hey, when you get home, your husband or your daddy, don't bring the job into the house with the families.
Right.
And with that being said, there's also a lot of law enforcement out there who said, I never bring this stuff into the house. I check it at the door. Well, we know that's not possible. Whether you say anything or not, your family members know if you've had a bad day.
Yep.
Yeah, they can feel your energy, and it's better to just share it. So we call that tactical de-stressing techniques. Yes. If you think, they relate better if you throw that word out there. But you just mentioned Warriors Rest Foundation, and we have to mention that the job that you guys are doing. Javi, you retired, like I said, you moved on to your next job. You didn't retire. So you are on staff at Warriors Rest. And then Cathy, you're getting your master's right now. Is the plan to bring you in as a clinician, or are you going to stay as a consultant? How is that going to work?
I work when I'm not doing my internship, that takes up all of my time right now. I do a little bit of crisis response peer support, but I also teach critical incident stress management for Warriors Rest Foundation. So right now I'm a contract laborer, I guess if you want to call it. I do what I can. when they need me, and anything past my degree we haven't discussed, but hopefully I'll be able to move into help in the role of a clinician.
Right. Warriors Rest is getting bigger and bigger,
Mhm.
and we need more clinicians who are first responder competent and knowledgeable. And that's what Cathy is doing right now. And as for me, they have contracts with different states, and they needed somebody to run the contract for them in the state of Missouri. So as I was retiring from my department, I went in and took over that job for Warriors Rest Foundation. And so right now I set up a lot of the training so the instructors that we have can go teach critical incident stress management in the state of Missouri. And they're currently getting as many first responders in Missouri peer certified and helping them stand up peer support teams, because that's important. And that's one of the primary missions of Warriors Rest Foundation, is to get those trained peers out there, to get those trained clinicians out there. So that way we're spreading the word of mental health help out there. Because a good friend of ours, Dr. Stephanie Kahn, she once said, years and years and years, y'all all heard it. It's okay not to be okay. Talk to somebody. Well, you know what? They're listening, and here they come, and they're coming.
And there's not enough.
And there's not enough peers, and there's not enough clinicians who are knowledgeable. So that's a big mission of Warriors Rest Foundation.
I'd like you guys to stress on that point that critical incident stress, after something happens in a department, right? That follow-up is so important, right?
Yes.
A lot of law enforcement agencies think, okay, there was an officer-involved shooting. We'll all sit in this big room. We'll get the critical incident stress done, and then we forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
The follow-up is the most important.
It is the most
Correct?
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do a really, well, I say most of us, or many of us, do a really good job up front with defusings and debriefings and things like that. But that's really just a small part of the overall picture of peer support, is the CISM aspect of it. There's so much more. There's so many more tasks. The follow-up is important. Making sure that, Maslow's hierarchy are being met, the basic needs, like who's going to take care of the kids? Do I have food in my house? We've done a lot of things in the name of peer support that a traditional peer support team would never think of, but it's whatever that first responder needs to get them through that next moment or that next day. And
with the understanding that every first responder is different.
Right.
We all have, across the board, when there's a critical incident, we all have it's normal to have a reaction, a stress reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is happening 2 months, 3 months down the line. And that's why, John, we see it all the time. That's where it's been 2 or 3 months. Aren't you we're over that, right? Because life as a first responder, our jobs, it doesn't stop. That's where I think that a lot of people fall through the cracks, where you almost have to have somebody that has a calendar, in whether it's a peer support liaison or mental health liaison, wellness person, whatever they call in the department, that says, okay, this is where we had our debrief. These are where we need to check in, because stuff happens.
Yeah.
But if you don't check in, that's where we tend to see people, we lose them.
Yeah. It's a good friend of ours. He's a retired chief from California Highway Patrol, says it's not that it's not important, but the 6 days after a critical incident is not near as important as the 6 months after a critical incident. And that's where we often lose people, when they start showing up late for work, or they start calling in sick, or they start coming in not looking kempt like they were before. And it's those little nuances that we lose sight of, because we start thinking along a disciplinary road when they start doing these things, rather than going, I wonder what's going on and what caused that. And
absolutely. And
once we allow it to happen.
Yeah, it's asking that question, hey, what's going on, with the follow-up. And when they say fine or I'm good, because we all know that,
right,
is the follow-up questions. And we've talked about, how to effectively follow up and making time to follow up. you know, I feel like we need to keep going and do this for a whole nother hour. It's totally flown by, as it does every week. How can our first responders and spouses, how can they reach out to you to either start a peer support program or get the help that they need?
We have an email address, Cathy and Javi
At gmail.com.
at gmail.com. Then we also have a website, cathyandjavi.com.
Mm-hmm.
We have LinkedIn. We
Social
have
media,
Twitter.
Twitter.
We do not have Snapchat because I refuse.
That's okay. I do not either.
So
Facebook, Instagram.
we always say that if you can't find us, it's because you're not trying.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're out there.
Right. And as far as the training aspect of it, we highly recommend my employer, Warriors Rest Foundation, because that's what they do as part of their mission, is get peers trained up and get peer support teams started. And all you got to do is go and search for Warriors Rest Foundation or warriorsrestfoundation.org, and you can see their website and see the fact that there are people who are paying it forward. And the reason why that peer support couple or Warriors Rest Foundation is paying it forward is because we've all gone through some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and we all have gotten to the other side. We're not perfect at all, but we've reached a point in our lives where we can pay it forward because we're in a much better place.
And we did the work.
And we did the work, and we want everybody else out there to experience what we did. So that's the way of paying it forward, as that peer support couple and Warriors Rest Foundation is helping others get to the other side.
And the work is worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have in a world where, you know, everything in our lives is expendable, especially in the law enforcement profession. We'll just change shifts, change departments, change partners, you know, all the things that are expendable. We have the beauty of being on the other side of it and having a happy, healthy marriage and having a shared history versus, you know, everything else that's going on in this profession with, you know, not having relationships with your spouses, not having relationships with your children for years, substance abuse, all the negative things that happen in this profession. We did the work and we're no longer there.
Right.
And so that's the beauty of getting the help that you need.
Exactly. And to those of you out there who are suffering right now, think of Warriors Rest hashtag, their hashtag, we are you, because we are you. And we've been through some bad stuff, and we've been at the bottom of the barrel, and we want to help you crawl out of that barrel and get out of it.
Well, Cathy and Javi, thank you so much for sharing this time with us, with all of our listeners and everybody who's watching live. Valuable information. Guys, reach out. It's okay not to be okay. We just don't want you to stay there. And you've got an amazing resource, an incredible couple, that peer support couple. Cathy and Javi, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Wow, fantastic. I can't stress enough, just like they did, the work is worth it because you will come out better on the other side. And now is the time, if you're thinking about jumping ship, retiring, or just wanting to give the middle finger, pause, take a breath, reach out first. Let's gain some perspective as we talk about. Speaking of gaining some perspective, every month we are walking the bridge. Big changes. We are now walking the bridge the third Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. here in Fort Worth, and 3 o'clock.
3:30.
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Trust me, partner.
3:30 in Fort Worth. Oh, is it 3 o'clock? I don't know. I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock.
Trust me, partner, because you're going to be in trouble with my spouse in a second. It is 3 p.m. in Fort Worth and in Rockwall. We walk to remember our first responders and our veterans, the way that they lived, not how they died, bringing awareness to suicide. So join us the third Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. in Rockwall and Fort Worth. If you're in the DFW, go to walkthebridge.org. Find the nearest Walk the Bridge event nearest you. We got to give a huge shout out to the Rockwall County GOP. They said they wanted to do something for first responders, and they came through. We have got scholarship spots for our next upcoming workshop, which is at the Garland Police Department. Thank you, Garland PD, for being our amazing partners in healing our heroes. You can go to abadgeofhonor.com. It is Friday, February 11th. Friday, February 10th. And you can sign up on our website. And if you are a Rockwall County first responder, reach out to us directly, and we'll figure out those scholarship spots for you. We've also got, a bunch of things going on the first half of the year. Visit our website, click on the events tab, go to our calendar. You can find out where we're going to be at conferences, what workshops we're doing, how you can get involved in those workshops, and how you can help heal others, become a mentor, just heal. We are wrapping our arms around our community of first responders, because you are not alone in this fight. We hear you. Your mental health, your brain health matters, and we're here to help and heal. Thank you to all of you out there putting your lives on the line to keep us safe on the home front here in every community across the U.S. Thank you to our veterans who served, who fought for our freedom to allow us to do this show every week and talk about the stuff that we do. And for those of you who are serving all around the world in our armed forces, thank you very much. We pray for you every day. John, take us home.
Well, you said it all. It was great to have, Cathy and Javier on peer support. If I could say anything, I usually say, if you could be anything in this world, please be kind. But you know what? The uncomfortable conversation factor needs to shed off our skin. We can't leave it as, hey, I'm okay. Are you okay? I'm fine. If we notice a red flag, let's take it a step further. That one step further is what's going to save the life. So we got to be able to break through that uncomfortable conversation and really sit down as brothers and sisters within our first responder community and embrace each other. Let's make sure that we look out for each other, recognize those red flags, recognize and just break through that uncomfortable conversation. It'll be so worth it on the other side. So that's it, Sam. Until next week, God bless everybody. Stay safe and keep our borders secure.
Take care, John. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.